Thank you. These are people that have worked long and hard, as you can tell. And we will have a question and answer period at the end. Do you want to wait till the end, Richard, or do you want to ask now?
I'll wait.
Okay. All right. So, you know, this is really exciting, and we've worked hard with these guys all day, and we've asked them hard questions, and they've been able to answer every one of them. So, you know, it's neat to have this community come together. So, the person you're going to hear from now is somebody I have a great deal of respect for, and our community is so fortunate to have Sandy Mark. Sandy is our community coordinator. She puts a lot of things together. She does a mail out with everything Christina Lake is doing. She helped us form Christina Gateway, Christina Venture Capital. She has helped numerous people with different financial problems. And she and her helpers, here, one of them will be in the ring, have helped people, and of course Kevin walk through computer problems. They've given classes on and on into the night. So I can't begin to say enough good things about Sandy Mark. I love working with her. I love her energy level. We can talk for hours. So ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for our community coordinator.
That's sweet. I try and be sweet. I try and look sweet and innocent. But my goal is to raise a little hell. And in Christina Lake, we have a lot of people here who want to raise a little hell. A lot of people here who realize that, you know, the future is upon us. We can see what's happening, and we're working really hard to deal with the daily things that are happening, but we have a future sitting there. We've got a future that if we don't do something, if we don't take the lessons that are being learned across Canada by other rural communities, that, you know, things aren't going to be quite like we'd like them to be. So, working in this community has been really quite remarkable, because in lots of communities, I think what Dan has been saying, there's a lot of resistance. It takes a long time to get anything done. But in this community, it just seemed like the time was right for a lot of things to happen, and people ready to grab hold and move forward. So in a very short period of time, we have really looked at what we want to see happen, and we have started making things happen. And it's just more or less, Grace has all this, you know, wants to do all these different sorts of things, and luckily I have had the mentorship of Mike Lewis, Paul, New Dawn, all these wonderful people who've been working so hard across Canada, inspiring me to be able to bring to Grace and to the people in the community these models. And I have to say that it's really quite remarkable for a small community like Christina Lake to have these people come here. So when we say thanks to SIBAC, thanks to these people who have put some money on the table for us today, it's really quite amazing. And I'm hoping that everybody who has spent the day and this evening will be able to see that the idea that we're trying to move forward with our Community Venture Capital Corporation is an idea that works, that we can actually grab hold and we can make a difference. So I want to just tell you sort of how we got this thing going. Like Grace said, she had learned about the idea in her rural BC study, where they say, what can we do in rural BC? And like you said, Peter, like, what can we do in rural Canada? I've worked across Canada in many communities, and it's always the same sort of thing. So what can we do? In rural Canada, where we have a wonderful life, where we're close to nature, you know, we all have to be working together across the country to do something about what's happening to us. So Grace said, yes, she's learned about these things in the rural study, and I say, well, I know what some people have done. Let's try some of these things. So we thought, let's look and see if we can find a way to create investment in our community, to encourage investment in our community. So I looked at what they did in Nova Scotia, and of course they've been working on this for a really long time, and they have a program now that really is wonderful, but we don't have that program. And I looked in Alberta, and Paul helped us when we first got started. Look what they're doing in Alberta. Well, we can't quite do that either. What can we do here? Well, we have a program in BC called the Small Business Venture Capital Program. And so we looked at this program, and I have to say that it's been a learning curve like this. All the people in the group have been, we did a lot of head banging and Jim has been really good at helping with the head banging to figure out how the heck we could make this thing work for us. So although Midway has done a venture capital corporation, we actually call ourselves the first community venture capital corporation. And because we have a goal not only of doing what we need to do here in Christina Lake, but also sharing that knowledge and working together with other organizations to try and bring this idea straight through BC, because we need it here, we really need it here. And with Grace's positioning, with CIVEC and CIDIT and the rural study and Kootenay boundary and so on, we are getting the information we've learned today. Is we are sharing that information because our goal is to get it possible for the people in BC, the communities in BC, to do these kinds of things without having to go through the agony that we've gone through learning how to do this sort of thing. When we first started, we particularly looked at the co-op model. I've worked in the co-op sector for a real long time, and I like the co-op approach very much. So when I went to the venture capital people, I said, we'd like to be a community cooperative. They said, we can't do that. We don't even know what co-ops are. So I came back and I said, well, I think we could set ourselves up so that we behaved as a community co-op, but even though we're not incorporated that way, so that we have a committee that's been brought together and everybody has a say and we all have equal say. So we have that power to do that in our approach. But in order to figure out how to do this, we have to figure out how to work with the Securities Commission. Now, how many people here have a friendly relationship with the Securities Commission? 2 people.
They're not even from BC.
And because they probably pounded on the Securities Commission for many long years. And so we're now, with our partners, are looking at how we can pound on the Securities Commission here in BC. So we're really happy to have an articling law student here from Clark Wilson, the securities law company in Vancouver, who have agreed to be our legal powerhouses. So we've said to them that what we're trying to do here is get something going that's going to be big. So if they invest by helping us learn, then it'll probably end up being good for them too. So they're helping us. And we brought today the people from the BC Co-op Association. Where are you, Carol?
Kevin's.
Kevin's here, is Carol?
No, Carol's.
Okay. Anyway, because we really would like to make it possible for them to participate as cooperatives in this program eventually. And we weren't able to bring Rupert from the Community Council in Victoria to this meeting because he had another big meeting, but they're looking at how to do an urban approach as well. So we're looking to see how what we're learning here in Christina Lake will automatically go ahead. Now, we had that brilliant idea, but we weren't able to actually make it happen except until CIVEC came along and were convinced that if they took some leadership, again, leadership, that they could start sparking this whole idea throughout the province. So many thanks to Gord for his hard work and to the So we're just learning. We're learning fast. But we couldn't have even begun, I think we've mentioned today, but I have to say again, we couldn't have even begun to start this process without the support of the Curley Memorial United Church here in Christina Lake. A little wee group of people who really care about this community, and when they heard about what we were trying to do, and we said we could get this going if we could find $25,000 somewhere or other, they said, we think we might be able to help. So they made the initial investment of $25,000, which allowed us to become a venture capital corporation under the current laws. So this to me is... I went yesterday to their service in the morning, and the whole service was about community. It was really quite beautiful. And I have to say that the most important day, the most memorable day I've ever had in this community, and I've had many of them, was the day that the whole congregation stood in a circle in this room, and each of them said why they had voted 100%, why they had voted to invest in our startup. They all talked about their love of this community and their hopes for the future of this community. It was very moving, really very moving. So we were able to get the pieces together to incorporate ourselves and so on. And now we have to learn how to dance with the Securities Commission. This has not been fun so far. But again, hallelujah, SIBEC comes along and says they will help us by providing some money so that we can write some manuals. Now, Alberta has been writing manuals and other people have been writing manuals to try and translate this stuff into some kind of language that some ordinary people would be able to understand. So we'll be able to do that using our experience working with Paul, working with them in Nova Scotia, working with them in Victoria, so that we will be able to actually get roadmaps that anybody would be able to understand. So we can say, how does this work? How can we make this work? How can we do the technical parts? Today we've spoken a lot about the motivation, why we need to do this, why it's important. But when it comes right down to it, we need to learn how to do it. How to do it. So we're very much in that process right now, learning how to do it. We wish we had a program like the CEDIF program, this Community Economic Development Investment Fund program that they have in Nova Scotia. So we've already, through Grace's leadership, we have already begun that dialogue at the provincial government level, so that we would say, not only are we happy that we can use the existing program to some extent, we also want to change that program so that it's much more acceptable to the communities. Currently, using that existing program, even though it doesn't quite fit, we can offer a 30% tax credit to investors, and we can, if it's, depending on anybody's own personal circumstances, they also can take that, their investment through the RSP system. Now, I think in Alberta you've used the worker co-op as an intermediary, and we may end up trying to do that as well, depending upon what kind of interest people have in using their RSP as an additional process to encourage them to put their money in their own community. We have some very wealthy people in this community, and we have some people who visit here who are very wealthy, and people who'd like to come here and live who probably are very wealthy as well. So we want to be encouraging all those people to not only come here, but also to care about the community's future and participate in this investment process. So right now, we, after this conference is finished and we have paid all the bills and we've sent off all the videos, and Les back there is going to be putting all this stuff that we did today on a YouTube channel, so anybody can chime in whenever they want to hear all the things that have been said today, and all the presentations that were made to do that were quite technical. We are going to do what you said. We're going to say, what do we do next? How do we move forward? So with the assistance of our legal company, we've learned that our business plan as a pool, which Paul mentioned a little bit about today, we're looking at becoming a pool, a venture capital pool, so that we will be able then to invest in a variety of businesses that come along. We haven't actually completed our plans for our business planning, but we're open at this point. If anybody knows about a business idea, or if anybody has a brilliant idea that they'd like to bring forward, we want to hear about that. So we will be communicating with the community to encourage participation of a variety of kinds. And we'll be having more opportunities for people to learn about this whole thing. The next thing we're going to be doing is having a workshop on how to become investment ready. We have many businesses in this community that are ready for sale or have for sale signs up in front of them, and we want to make sure that those businesses don't close just like that. We want to make sure that we can find a way to help them through succession. But they have to be ready for investment. They can't just say, buy me. They have to prepare themselves for that. So we want to prepare, help people who want to sell their business become ready. And the people from the Angel Forum, people in Vancouver, are going to be coming out here providing us with that kind of information. We're also working with the Kootenay Association for Science and Technology, with CIDIT, CIBEC, to develop programs to assist our board to be able to make really good decisions, so that when we invest, those investments will work, when we can provide the support that are needed for those businesses to really thrive and move ahead. So it's a game. It's a very interesting game. It's a challenge, and it's a real thrill to be able to start out on this journey, and to start out knowing that we have the kinds of leaders and the kind of pathway that have been created in Nova Scotia and Alberta, and that we have the resources of those folks to assist us to move forward. So I'm really looking forward to talking to people who have ideas, and if you have an idea, if you have a brilliant idea, if you know somebody who does, come talk. Also, please, again, put your hands up, please, members of the board, because all of them are willing to talk to you as well and hear what you have to say. And we'll be, again, engaging you in this whole discussion as we move forward. So it's wonderful to work with you. It's wonderful to work with Grace. It's wonderful to have the support we have from around the country and to be part of a movement of reclaiming our own future. Thank you.
Big round of applause, because I can't do this alone. I need somebody like that and somebody like you guys out there, right? This community has stepped up to the plate every time we needed something to happen. And I'm telling you, if you look at each other, you'll see a volunteer and everybody sitting here. So that's why it works. So, questions and answers. Richard, you had a question.
Yeah, question to Peter. What security do you have on these loans that you do have?
Primarily, we don't have security. It's a short answer. We do have one loan where we have security on the building, but the nature of the businesses that we did invest in, software companies, there's just no hard assets to take security.
Okay, could you give us an idea of what the loans you gave, what businesses started up in New Dawn?
Sure.
Other than the software ones you mentioned.
Sure. So New Dawn, we have, I've lost count, we have at least 20 companies. So 20 different companies. I think when I started 4 years ago, we had 16 or 17, and the idea was to reduce them. And we've actually grown the number of companies over the last couple of years. So New Dawn has real estate, we have a private career college, we have a home care, healthcare business, renewable energy business. So our first 7 years of the CEDA was used primarily for the New Dawn group of companies. So the loan details, we loan, the CEDA loaned the money to New Dawn at 6%. New Dawn pays the interest monthly, and then the CEDA company uses that to pay dividends and then issue any share redemptions. We have 4 other existing deals. In 2012, we moved out of the New Dawn group of companies, kind of the first venture into venture capital, I guess. We invested in a company in Sydney that was manufacturing metal enclosures, kind of similar to a desktop, the metal enclosure in a desktop computer. So these are custom made. So the company was probably 10 years in existence at that time, had lots of success, and their initial seed money was from a venture capital company in Toronto. So I think they owed them 1.1 million, and they owned the venture capital company owned a piece of the company. So the company we invested in wanted to take that ownership back to Cape Breton, and so they paid the venture capitalist company their equity stake, paid them off. They were 1.1 million, and so they're cash strapped. So we loaned the money to Protocase. All of their assets were mortgaged, so that we didn't have, there wasn't any security there. So we did loan them about 1.4 million with no security, 5.2% interest. We did have some confidence in the company. They've had a history of making money. They were expanding their product line. We knew the owner. He sat on our board in previous years. So we had some confidence in the companies. And then the next year, 2013, we issued 3 loans to 3 different companies. 2 of them were software companies. Again, no hard assets. And one of the reasons why we're there is the bank won't loan the money. And as I said this afternoon, The banks want security, they want your left arm and your first kid. So that's kind of why we're there. So software companies typically don't have hard assets. So we looked at the companies and interviewed and had presentations from the owners. And basically we're investing in the owner. That's the way we look at it. And then so two of the companies, again, were software companies. We didn't have, it was security. Third company, which was a glass manufacturer. They, excuse me, manufacture glass. And they didn't have any security on their building, so we took security on the building. So going forward, we'd like to have the security, but unfortunately, just with the nature of the loans and the businesses, sometimes that's just not possible.
Thank you.
Peter, could you just tell for the people who weren't here this afternoon, so the $9 million you raised, how much have you paid out in dividends and back out to investors?
We paid out almost $1 million in dividends, and about $500,000 in share redemptions. So people who wanted their money back, their investment back, every one of them received their investment back.
Do you have somebody to purchase those shares when they, like,
No.
So you
No.
guys buy them
We
back?
buy them back, yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
And then do you resell them or you just hold on to them?
We sold it on to them,
Yeah.
and then we'll do another share issue in the next year. Yeah. And that's one of the, I think that one of the positive things with our CETA, there are two things. One is we issue dividends semi-annually, so in January and July, everyone gets a dividend check. And also, we have a 100% share redemption rate. So people, we have a history of getting people their money back. So I think we've built that trust in the community, and I think that's why we've been so successful in our CETA.
So maybe Dan wants to add to that question, and he can tell you what Sangria has done in that respect also.
In regard to the security question, in Sangudo, our co-op actually owned the real estate. So investors buy shares in the co-op itself. They really don't have any security for their investment, but the co-op has security on the land that it bought. And in a case where we've just redone one of our deals with the meat shop that we invested in, the co-op now holds a mortgage on it, plus general security agreements on the equipment as well. With the Unleashing Local Capital program that is working right across Alberta, we're strongly suggesting that co-ops, these opportunity development co-ops, take security or else own the hard assets so that there is something that can be sold if something goes astray.
So if we invest in a business that's not doing that well, we could take security in that business if we loan them $1 million sort of thing. So
That's correct.
that's how we could do it then.
Yeah, as long as there is security there.
Yeah.
As Peter talked, sometimes they've got that all mortgaged out to other companies. But Chris Payne made a really great comment. This was, gosh, a year ago. I participated in a webinar that he was a part of, and he said, the business of this business is to invest in people. And that's what you're doing. This is about investing in your community. Security or not, we need to look at the bigger community benefits of what this does. And when people are invested in the company, either through your co-op or your venture capital corp or whatever it is, the tendency is to support and to encourage other people to support it as well. It's a big community question.
Any more questions? Joe?
I got a question. It's been a very good speech. Motivational speakers are really good. But I'm just wondering, when would the people of Christina Lake find out what's happening, find out how much money do we have to invest? I mean, if I want to invest some money, it would be nice to know where, it would be nice to know when. I mean, has anybody got plans on what
Yep.
they're going to do?
Yep.
Yes, right now we are just
We're just finalizing our business plan, and we had to have some legal advice to figure out what we actually could do. So we have that. And we also are doing what's called an offering memorandum, because according to the Securities Commission, we have to use an exemption so that we don't have to do a public offering that would cost us all the money that we could raise. So we need to do it by exemption. So we're doing all that technical work right now. As soon as we have completed that technical work, which we hope will be within 2 months, Jim? 3? 4? July. I think we'll be having our first offering in July. We have to have what's called an opening audit, and we can't have that until the end of our first fiscal year, so that's coming up. But when we do, we will certainly be letting everybody know, and we tell everybody through the community calendar, through the community, all the community activities to tell everybody. So when we're ready, we will be certainly telling everybody. In the meantime, as I say, if you have an idea or if you're interested, please let me know.
Just keep putting pennies in your piggy bank.
That's it.
It's about doing it right, Joe. It's about having all the answers before we put the whole thing out there. And that's what we're doing. And that committee is working really hard on that with Sandy's help. But things are different in BC than they are in other provinces. So we have to make sure that all of that information is correct, and that step by step we do it right, not wrong. So we've been taking our time with it, and you certainly will find out there'll be a big rah-rah when we're ready.
According to how much we're able to rah-rah, because one of the things is we can't rah-rah particularly, but if you have one of these little brochures here, it answers some of your questions. So if you haven't picked one up, please come and pick one up.
Questions?
Kevin has one.
Go ahead, Kevin.
I was just wondering if you folks could speak to the type of person that invests in these funds. I mean, I know it's a diverse thing, but I mean, is it all millionaires? Is it, you know, all folks that are just insane volunteers, or?
I would say in the initial years that New Dawn did the seed up, I think most of the people were friends of New Dawn, knew New Dawn. Some of them were probably more of the business people in the area. I think in the last 5 years, because during the investment period, I probably meet 60 to 70% of the investors, and I would say 80 to 90% are just your general working folks. They're not the millionaires. They're not the business people. They're just your people in the community. Whether they transfer RSPs, we had a conversation I think earlier. There's a lot of money that people have in investments in RSPs. There's more out there than you think there is. So with us, we encourage our RSP transfers. So about 20% of the people that invest transfer from an existing financial institution or mutual funds. So that's an easy way for people to invest. And then we have, I would say, our average investment. Our minimum investment is 1,000. Our maximum is 50. But our average is about 8 to 10,000 per individual. And we do have, we run the gamut from 1,000. And each year we probably get 3, 4, 5 people that will put in the maximum of $50,000. So, yeah, and it's amazing people will come in with a $50,000 check. Well, yeah, and I'll just give you an example. One guy was just a real estate agent. Or not just a real estate agent, but he wasn't. He wasn't a business owner. He wasn't someone that you would expect to come in with a $50,000 check. So we have a variety of people from different demographics, for sure.
Any other questions? So, you know, it's been a fun day for us, and for you too, obviously. But what I need to do is say a special thank you to our guests here, because not all of you got to listen to the speakers that we had today, and I wish you could have. But I would have kept you here till about midnight, and you probably would not have been happy with me. So, by way of thank you, I'm going to start out with Peter Cameron. And I'm going to say, Peter, thank you very, very much for the time you put in with us today. You know, these people have come a long way. So, big round of applause, please, for Peter Cameron. And that is Christina Lake.
Who are you looking at right now through the window?
And so, Dan, you know, you're so much fun. And you know, how can investment ever be fun? You think about accounting and whatever, and oh my God, what a headache. But look at this guy, you know, I mean, he's fun. So by way of thank you, Christina Lake says, come back anytime to all of you. And Dan, thank you.
The slogan is "Come home to the lake."
We have a song.
Shame on you. Okay, so Paul Sabai, got it right, eh? You know, you guys didn't all get to listen to Paul, but we did. And talk about another bundle of energy. You can see why Alberta's been doing what it's doing. One of the founders of Spark Power, an electricity retailer cooperative operating in Alberta. On and on. So you read his bio also, and you'll know what we heard today from Paul Sabai. So Paul, Christina Lake says, thank you very much. Mike Lewis, you know, Mike gave the most interesting presentation today. He's extremely honest, gotta say. And I loved it. He says not everybody does, but I did. Mike is, at 25, Mike founded what is now known as the Canadian Centre for Community Renewal, and remains its director. He did some forecasting with us today and was extremely honest. And the message there was, get on with it, folks, because there's nobody there to help you. And there isn't going to be. So you need to look to your communities to decide what's going to happen there. So, Mike, please. Thank you. Told you we had fun today. And our other speaker today is Chris Payne. And Chris is the director with the Nova Scotia Ministry of Economic and Rural Development and Tourism. Wow. And he gave us some numbers and some figures and some, this is where we went and this is what it did for us. And the whole message was so, so positive. Like I say to you, I wish you could have heard what we all heard earlier this afternoon. So, Chris, thank you so much from Christina. Okay, so unless you want to chit-chat some more, there is coffee. If you'd like to have a cup of coffee and talk with anybody, you're more than welcome to. Other than that, it's been a full day, and thank you so much. Tell all your neighbors that they should have come out to raise a little hell with Christina Lake. So, come home to the lake.